And you know what, Kelly, I think for those of you at home, you look at the picture of Lou Shurtleff, and those of us who have covered the state capitol know that that kindness that you see in those pictures, that is her. And that does make today especially tough for our next guest, who served with Shurtleff for most of those years in the House. Democratic Representative Patrice Arent announced her intention to retire almost a year ago. Since 1997, Arent has been that thing that seems impossible in Utah State politics, an influential leader on the left side of the aisle. Now, Representative Arent, I want to start by just asking you about Lou Shurtleff. I know she was a friend and that this is a tough day.
Lou was an amazing friend. I have known her since her first campaign. She was a fabulous legislator. She was strong and passionate and effective, such an effective advocate, particularly for education issues, but for many other important issues. And she was adored by everyone. I remember talking to people when I was knocking on doors with her. They loved her. They were her former students. Her constituents adored her, and her colleagues on both sides of the aisle all respected Lou.
And she just kept getting reelected by her constituents in Weber County as the rest of that county went red.
Absolutely. I know I'm personally, and I know the whole legislature will miss her wisdom and her kindness and compassion. And again, my heart just goes out to her family. This must be so hard. Lou was a truly amazing person.
Yeah, I know. We all feel that. So we feel what the emotion behind that. So thank you for that, Patrice. Now, I do want to ask you about your experience in the legislature. You started in '97. There was a time for 4 years when you were out of the legislature. In between it, you went to the Senate and then back to the House. But I wonder, you started before social media, before 9/11, before everyone had a phone and with a camera. What's different about the legislature you're leaving than the one that you entered?
Well, you talked about some of the things right there. There are fewer reporters, which actually is a sad thing, because the reporters were all experts in their area. It wasn't one or two reporters from a station trying to cover everything at once. And I think that was good, and it helped for transparency in government. Obviously, when I came in, there were more Democrats, and there were more Republicans that were moderates. And I think that makes a difference, that the Democrats and the moderate Republicans could get together and come up with enough votes to pass or to defeat legislation sometimes.
It's interesting because I think if we were to look at polls in Utah and at even election results, by numbers, there are more Democrats in Utah today than there were back then, but they're all concentrated in certain areas, aren't they? So there are fewer representatives.
Well, there's also gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Which has something to do with all of that. In fact, that's how I lost my original House seat. It didn't exist after redistricting, and that's why I decided to run against the Senate Majority Leader, which everyone thought was a little crazy. I probably thought it was a little crazy.
Well, they drew a line around you, right? They drew a line including you and one of your best friends in the House, so you were both in the same district.
What they did is they drew her district, and they drew a line down to my house, which was quite a ways, and it was the funniest looking district.
Well, I wonder what you're most proud of from your years there at the legislature.
It's like asking, which of your children do you love the most? I've passed almost 90 bills, and I guess the ones that stick out for me, the newborn safe haven law, which allows the anonymous drop-off of infants at hospitals. And we had a problem with, dumpster babies like other states did, and women panicking when they had their child and didn't know what to do. And Utah was one of the very first states to pass a Newborn Safe Haven Act, and we've saved so many lives, and even in unintended ways we've saved lives. Women calling our hotline to find out there are resources if they wanted to keep their baby, and they did, but they didn't know about them, and other ways that we just didn't anticipate. So that I'm very proud of. In 2012, I came up with this crazy idea of starting a bipartisan Clean Air Caucus, which we began the next year. And we've had such great support from both sides of the aisle. We've passed, since the caucus began, more clean air legislation than in the history of our entire state before that. So I'm proud of that. I did a lot of children's health care bills. One was to make it illegal, which it is, to smoke in a car if a child is a passenger, because it's so horrible for the child with developing lungs. I worked on and passed some identity theft legislation, and I've done a lot of work in the election law area. The straight ticket voting bill, which made it for the first time passed this year, that I'd worked on for years, so people could not just check one box and not look at the names.
Yeah.
and who they're voting for. And also, I was able to help create. I sponsored a bill to create the presidential primary. So lots of really interesting things, but I didn't work on them alone. I had lots of help, lots of experts, many advocates, people on both sides of the aisle helping me in the House and in the Senate.
Well, and those of us who've watched the legislature closely have watched, and it's easy to see why you've had that help. You have a personality that crosses the line. You can be assertive without being self-aggrandizing. It's just impressive all the way around. And so I know that on both sides of the aisle, you're going to be missed up there. And I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us, Representative.
Thank you so much, Max. Thank you for everything you do.
Hey, Happy New Year.